What differentiates the winners from the masses? Well, I have. And I have found that the winners are aware of a certain place within. It's referred to as the higher self. And in this higher self, there's an image of perfection, which is forever attempting to express itself in a greater way. When the winner wants to turn their dreams into physical realities, they call on this higher self. And they set about and change the world, not just for themselves, but for everyone in it.
Rich people think differently. So what I'm gonna put in your head today is a rich people concept, so you can get to understand it. The only difference between successful people and not is just how they think. Rich people think different. Quit letting people tell you you gotta get qualified in another program. You don't need another program to be successful. You need to change the way you think.
Strange thing about faith and fear, they both demand you believe something you can't see.
There is a method by which one may transmute failure into success, poverty into riches, sorrow into joy, fear into faith.
The way you think creates reality for yourself. There are other factors going on, so it's not everything, but you really can change your own reality based on the way that you think.
You attract not just what you fear, you attract what you feel, what you are, what you attract. What's on your mind. Yes,
It's like
exactly.
the law of physics. I don't know how anybody can disagree with that.
A power which is greater than poverty, greater than the lack of education, greater than all of your fears and superstitions combined. It is the power to take possession of your own mind and direct it to whatever ends you may desire.
You know, I always dreamed as a kid that, you know, it was possible to score 80 or 90 or 100. I always just like, you know, had a dream. You know, like sometimes you lay down in bed and you visualize things. And you just kind of, you know, that's at least how I would go to sleep. I'd lay down, I'd imagine playing for the Lakers, and I'd imagine what the uniforms look like. I'd imagine where we'd be playing, and, you know, the smell of the arena and all sorts of stuff. And I would see myself, you know, getting hot, you know, and score 10 straight points. And then, but in a dream, like, why would you ever interrupt that? Like, you're not going to have a dream and be like, okay, and then he misses his next 6. Like, it's not going to happen. So you just keep dreaming and dreaming and dreaming, and before I go to sleep, I'm like at 120 points, you know?
Be definite, believe, and act. When doubt creeps into your mind, remember that whatsoever a man believeth, that shall he also reap.
The person who's living in lack is waiting for their wealth to feel abundant. They're waiting for their success to feel empowered. They're waiting for their healing to feel gratitude. They're waiting for their new relationship to feel love. They're waiting for their mystical experience to feel awe. That's the Newtonian model of reality, of cause and effect. You know, waiting for that event to happen to take away this separation or lack. Nothing wrong with it. It's the way most people create. But what we've discovered is actually something else. The moment you feel gratitude, your healing begins. The moment you feel worthy and abundant, you're generating wealth. The moment you're empowered, you are moving towards your success. The moment you're in love with yourself and you're in love with life, you'll create an equal. The moment you are in awe of life, you're going to have a mystical experience. And so that's causing an effect, right?
Where I shall introduce you to your greatest asset. And with this introduction, the master key to success will be within your easy reach. I say this is your greatest asset with which you may tap and draw upon the supreme power which created you and runs this entire universe. The name of this principle is applied faith. I should know what I'm talking about because I was handicapped at birth by the 4 horsemen which keep most people in bondage all the days of their lives: poverty, fear, illiteracy, and superstition.
Listen to this. You do not have to be the smartest cat in town to earn a lot of money. As a matter of fact, you can be pretty dumb and earn a lot of money. I was pretty dumb and I was earning a lot of money. So when people tell me you got to be smart to earn a lot of money, I know that's not true, because I knew I wasn't very smart and I was earning a lot of money. Now I've become a little smarter because I've never stopped studying and really very serious information. But when it first happened, I didn't know much. You see, this 1% earned 96% of all the money. And that is because they multiply their time by setting up multiple sources of income. They don't have one source of income. They've got all kinds of sources of income. Do you want God's truth? I don't know how many sources of income. I really do not know. I'm not being...
If you decide to be rich today, who gonna stop you? Who?
Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve.
It's the most powerful thing in the world, is your own brain. It can work for you or against you.
The only difference between successful people and not is just how they think. Rich people think different.
Understand this. If you can see it, you don't have to know how to get it. Your life will change. See this? This is energy too. If you get on the frequency this is on, you can't stop it coming.
In order to think and grow rich, it requires intention. But to think and grow broke, it only requires neglect.
Kid, I don't know. In fact...
Hey guys, see this pattern? I'm in now. And...
I'm not really that interested in knowing. I'm interested in knowing I'm setting up more sources.
So, in order for us to change a belief or perception about ourselves and our lives, we have to make a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that's greater than the hardwired programs in your brain and the emotional conditioning in your body. And your body literally has to respond to your mind. That the choice that you're making to change in that moment becomes a moment in time that you never forget. And what are the qualities of that person that you could embody? That's the key, right? Because it's not about wealth. It's who you become, right? Because people think it's about their wealth, but it's the becoming process. It's the overcoming.
That attracted that, right?
Of course.
Isn't it a strange fact that most people make a negative application of their great power of faith by thinking about and believing in poverty, ill health, fear, failure, and defeat, when it would be so easy for them just to change their thinking over to the circumstances and things they desire?
How would an abundant person think? Write it down, dude, and fire and wire those thoughts in your brain and install the hardware. Keep doing it with attention and intention. It becomes the new voice in your head. It becomes a software program. Then say, okay, how am I going to be in my life today? What would an abundant person, how would they behave? And before you reach for your cell phone and start scrolling through your social media, close your eyes and rehearse in your mind how that person would walk, how they would breathe, how they would smile, how they would greet people, how they would be on Zoom calls, how would they be in traffic, how would they be at dinner. And the act of closing your eyes and mentally rehearsing the act, if you're truly present, the brain does not know the difference between the real life experience and what you're imagining.
They stepped aside. They didn't let logic stop them. Make up your mind. That's this idea of you got to be realistic, that you got to be logical, is a bunch of nonsense. You don't have to be logical at all. I've been totally illogical many times, and it's helped me earn a lot of money. You got to bust out of that now.
2 years in the gym, true wins, true losses, true life. I just realized that if you say it to yourself and you look yourself in the eye and look yourself in the mirror and truly believe that not a man alive can beat you, then that is the way it is. And just true hours in the gym and preparation, I feel that I am untouchable right now.
If you aim for success above mediocrity, you will need to learn to act on your own personal initiative, because your success is something which you must achieve for yourself without someone telling you what to do or how to do it. There are two kinds of men who never amount to much: those who cannot do as they are told, and those who can do nothing else.
My mother made me believe in myself. No matter how many people tell me, stop believing in yourself. Stop saying what you can do. Stop affirming what you're going to do and then completing that in real life. That's the improper way to do it. I refuse to follow those rules that society has set up in the way that they control people with low self-esteem.
And remember to think. Imagination is everything, and we can become what we can imagine.
The universe is listening to everything you say and everything you think and saying, okay, you can get that. So then it starts to bring you in and bring things into you. And I know this sounds far-fetched, but it's amazing how it works. If you do a good general positive statement for yourself, the universe will figure out how to manifest that, how to bring that about in your life. So things could happen that you wouldn't expect at all, but they will happen.
When I wrote my book, How to Be Rich, the publishers wanted to change the title. They wanted to call it How to Get Rich. Well, I told them, getting rich is easy. I mean, any fool can get rich. And any number of fools do.
I've noticed that.
But being rich, that's something else. When a man becomes wealthy, he has to deal with the problems of freedom. All the choices he could possibly want. An abyss opens up. Well, I watched that abyss. I watched it ruin men, marriages, but most of all, it ruins the children. Thought I could trust my own blood.
As soon as your brain says, I'm gonna do it, your body finds a way to do it. You know, if your mind is already there, your body will find a way to follow and get there.
You're dead, Carl. You say no to life, and therefore you're not living. You make up excuses to the people around you and to yourself. You're stuck in the same dead-end job you have been for years. And you lost the love of your life because she couldn't be with someone who didn't live theirs.
Probably all thinking in your head, this guy is talking absolute dribble. He's not gonna do what he says he's gonna do. You're probably all sitting there thinking that. But now here we are again, and I done what I said I was gonna do. I feed off this. I love this stuff. This is what gives me energy. Saying I'm gonna do something. Putting it out there for the world to see, and then going out and doing it. There's no better feeling in the world than that. And it's as easy as that. Say what you're gonna do, and go and do it.
When you speak of your poverty and lack of education, you are simply directing your mind power to attract these undesirable circumstances. Because it is true that whatever your mind feeds upon, your mind attracts to you. Now you see why it is important that you recognize that all success begins with definiteness of purpose, with a clear picture in your mind of precisely what you want from life.
I have an insane belief in my own ability to manifest things. Insane belief, that I think it's ultimately complete sanity. But I believe we're creators, and I believe we create with every thought and every word. Every moment is pregnant with the next moment of your life.
When you were struggling personally and professionally, did you write yourself a check?
Yeah, I made my check, which was just basically $10 million to Jim Carrey for acting services rendered, dated Thanksgiving 1995. I gave myself 5 years to be one of the most successful working actors.
When you pray, believe that you already have what you're asking for. Believe that you have. Just believe that you have. Is it so hard to believe? We believe that tomorrow will come. We believe that the sun will rise in the morning and set at night. We believe that the ocean and the tide will be there, and the moon. We believe the grass will grow. We believe that our food will digest. And who is there who knows how any of these things happen? Just believe, and it will be done unto you. It seems too good to be true, doesn't it? And you and I will never know until we try it.
Your body is so objective that it's believing it's living in that reality where you are abundant. And as long as you feel that emotion, you're not separate from it any longer. You're no longer in lack. You're no longer looking for it to occur. Say, why hasn't it happened yet? If you're feeling abundant, why would you look? The longer you're conscious of that energy, the more you draw that future to you. Which means if you want to change your personal reality, you're going to have to change your personality. Right. Nothing changes in your life until you change.
The secret, the law of attraction, the book on the law of attraction. Yeah, that was what changed my life.
What is the most resilient parasite? An idea. Resilient, highly contagious. Once an idea has taken hold of the brain, it's almost impossible to eradicate. An idea that is fully formed, fully understood, that sticks. Right in there somewhere.
Anything can be achieved, and it can be achieved like that. Do you know what I mean? If you put the head down, if you walk and you believe in yourself and you speak with confidence, and whatever you want to do, you speak it out with no fear, and no matter what people say, it happens. So that's something that I can take with me.
But what makes him become the person he becomes is that he becomes what he thinks about most of the time. And that's the strangest secret. This is why thinking is so vital. This is why a goal is so important. Because we will become that. This is why people who set goals achieve them. The trouble with men is not in achieving their goals. They do that. It's in establishing them.
Is a belief that we all start out with a false belief about ourselves, with some untrue thing that we believe walking through our lives. I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm gonna fail. Whatever your basic mistaken belief about yourself is, you form a personality around.
The brain sees in pictures and images, it's more creative. We're moving into that alpha state. So now the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind opens up as we get beyond our analytical mind. And our analytical mind is actually what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind. So as you slow your brain waves down, you get into alpha, you're entering the operating system. And that's where you can rewrite a new program. That's where you can rehearse a new script. That's where you can begin to plan your behaviors in an intentional way. Some people can get to the point where they're so relaxed that the body's in a light sleep, and yet they're conscious and awake, and now they're in this theta brainwave pattern. And in theta, that's a hypnotic state. We're very suggestible to our thoughts. We're very suggestible to information in that state. And that state then is where we see the most change take place. And so the person can literally change from the inside out when they learn how to get into the operating system.
Every human being is a creator. And they are creating their life. And we don't know, for many of us, we did not know that that was the case. And we are creating our life through our thoughts. So it's not that our thoughts are powerful, it's that we are powerful. And so when we focus on a thought and we really hold that focus, that thought will manifest in our life.
Remember, too, that your faith is limited only by your own capacity to believe. You can do whatever you make up your mind to do. I believed I could give the world a practical philosophy of success which would free men and women from their fears and limitations. I stood firmly back of that belief through 20-odd years of effort, and saw my belief give freedom to millions of people. Do the thing, said Emerson, and you shall have the power. May I paraphrase this great truth by saying, believe and you shall receive. And now, until our next visit, will you please remember that your life is exactly what you make it by your own mental attitude.
There is no end to what you're capable of doing. Once you get into this vibration, you'll start attracting things. Opportunity is just going to pop up everywhere you go. That's really the name of the game.
The biggest life lesson that I've learned is the power of the mind, and just how important it is to look at yourself in a high regard and to believe in yourself. I think in order to paint a bright future for yourself, you have to be able to see it in your mind. You have to believe in it, and the more you believe in it, the more your world will start to change, and the more you'll just start to see your beliefs come to pass. So
I will attract into my life what I am, not what I want. And I am capable of attracting all things that the source is capable of attracting. So that's the difference. It's like you get what you are rather than what you want.
If you're going to put your effort into something and you're going to work on something, you cannot afford the luxury of a negative thought. I'm going to write a book. I can't afford to think that it won't sell. I'm going to build a business. I can't afford to think that I'm not going to get any clients.
Remember that your mental attitude is something you control outright, and you must use self-discipline until you create a thought pattern or thought habits which keep your mental attitude positive at all times. Your mental attitude is important because it acts as a magnet which attracts to you everything, every circumstance which makes you what you are and where you are.
You know, in my head, my life was always good, even when it probably wasn't. You know what I mean? And so I just keep that in my head, feel like a millionaire walking around.
He had to ask himself, am I able to do this? Well, he seemed to have that innate awareness of this higher self, this image of perfection within him, and he saw himself as a person that was actually able to take and turn the fantasy into a fact. Now, he must have been a pretty courageous guy because there were no horseless carriages in those days. But then he had to ask himself, am I willing? And you see, he had to ask himself, am I willing to accept the ridicule that I'm bound to get? Am I willing to accept the failures? Well, he said, yes, I am willing. He was willing to pay the ultimate price to turn his fantasy into a fact.
Many years ago, I read where Napoleon Hill pointed out that the imagination is the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful force that the world has ever known. And you know, the average individual uses the imagination, if they use it at all, against themselves. They imagine what they don't want. They imagine problems coming. Let's begin to use our imagination the way God meant it to be used. It's the greatest creative faculty that we possess, and we can build anything we want with it.
I speak it, believe it, receive it. Speak it, believe it, receive it. Speak it, believe it, receive it. I can't say it enough. I speak it, believe it, receive it. Can you feel the power, the magic that I put out in the universe and I let it manifest and it draws to me? It don't get no powerful than that. My mind, I control that. My words, I speak that. My action, I display that.
You know, for me to try and change the results in my life, in other words, what's going on outside of me, without changing what's going on inside, would be just about as foolish for me to try and change the reflection of this mirror without changing my physical appearance. It's never going to happen. Well, that's what people are doing. They're trying to change something outside without changing what's going on inside.
And when you start introducing thoughts and you start thinking of thoughts as a form of perception, they're going to shape they're going to shape what you see. They're very going to heavily constrain what you see.
Set a goal to become a millionaire. And he said, here's why. For what it will make of you to achieve it. And I got one of the greatest classes in one sentence I've ever received in my life. Set a goal that'll make you stretch that far. For what it will make of you to achieve it.
One thing is certain, no one ever becomes very wise without the aid of self-discipline, and no one ever finds peace of mind and happiness without the strict exercise of self-discipline.
Most people don't affect reality in a consistent, substantial way because they don't believe they can.
Whatever way we observe the world around us is what comes back to us. And the reason why my life, for instance, is so lacking in joy and happiness and fulfillment is because my focus is lacking in those same things exactly.
Remember, faith is not something you get. Faith is something you already have. But you may be using it in reverse gear by believing in the circumstances and things you do not want, the things you fear. Remember also that faith is guidance only. It is not a power which will bring you what you want, but a power that can guide you to go after what you want and get it.
Well, in many ways, thinking is a lot like perception. Perception, again, being which sensations I'm focusing on, except that thinking incorporates sensations from the past, sensations from the present, and can include sensations from the future that we haven't even had yet.
Interesting.
So this, I think, speaks to your question about law of attraction.
If you decide that you will be poor, you're going to be poor. If you decide to be rich today, who gonna stop you? Who? If you decide you want to be rich, all you gotta do is start. Why not? Who gonna stop you?
I want to tell you the most interesting story in the world. Why a person becomes the person he becomes. Why a little boy or a little girl grows up to be the kind of person he or she becomes. Now, the estimates by the experts in this field are that most of us are using somewhere around 5% of our real potential. Some experts say as little as 1%. But it also means that we're only experiencing 5% of the fun, 5% of the joy, 5% of the rewards we could be knowing, or less. All the experts are agreed that in each of us